On August 16, 2023, the Western version of Lost Ark released the Wield the Storm update into the game, which featured a bunch of new content. This content included the new Legion Raid Commander, Khan, a new specialist subclass in the Aeromancer, a new Guardian raid named Sonovel, and the Super Makoko Express for new and returning players, plus a boatload of quality of life improvements. But for me, as a true Lost Ark player, I know that Lost Ark truly only has one type of endgame content that mattered, and that's Chaos Dungeons. In this update, Smilegate just dropped the recent KR update to Chaos Dungeons to the west, Fate Embers. For those that don't know, Fate Embers are essentially a rare, random drop in Chaos Dungeons that rewards the player with various useful rewards such as silver, honing materials, cards, but most importantly, gold. Now, a week before the update landed, I was preparing myself to limit test the new update with my roster of 24 characters, all of them with an item level of 1490 or above. The goal was simple. We do the Chaos Dungeon, we record the drops, and then we just see how profitable it can be. What I'm about to show you is around 6 months of farming on more than 24 characters, and boy did I find some stuff out. The first week of the update I went pretty hard in the paint. All my characters were fully rested in preparation for the update, and the first day rewarded us with 17 Embers. I distinctly remember this first week because I was 5 Albahastic cards away from finishing my Master of Spears card set, and I managed to get more than 5 epic selectors in this week. The gold income was also insanely high, and I made more this first week from Chaos Dungeons than what I would normally get from doing all my raids. I knew the first week would be an outlier though, because I never usually have more than 2 bars of rest bonus on my Chaos Dungeons on any of my characters. I farmed Chaos Dungeons almost every day of the week for the next month to see how much the results would change, and not surprisingly I was receiving roughly half the number of awards compared to the first week. Interestingly though, the gold drop rate was still decent enough that I could afford to skip a decent number of lower tier raids on my gold earn, like Clown, each week without feeling the hit. I was making 40k to 60k gold a week reliably from Chaos Dungeons, which I invested heavily into honing and engraving books. The Fate Ember update let me gear up 4 of my 1490 ults to 5x3 within a space of 2 weeks. The week of September 20th was my birthday week, and I had a job interview lined up on Monday, so I decided to give the dailies one last full degen session for a while before I had to rely more on rested bonus going forward. Another month of farming goes by and I'm doing less Chaos Dungeons, but the amount of Fate Embers I'm receiving doesn't seem to have changed significantly. Also, the quality of Fate Ember loot from rested Chaos Dungeons just generally feels better than unrested. It was still comfortable making 50k gold or more a week from Chaos Dungeons despite having to run less. However, I realized that my current method of recording data wasn't telling me enough information. I had to revamp it to be able to make the most of this system. I redesigned a layout of my tables in Excel, and instead of sorting the drops based on the item level it was dropped from, I improved the system so I can record the specific character it was dropped from, as well as the day the drop happened, and whether the Chaos Dungeon was rested or unrested. This change would hopefully help me better pinpoint trends that the previous setup may have missed. After another month of farming, I encountered something interesting. Since the update released, I usually do all my roster's Chaos Dungeons on reset day, Thursday, and on the Sunday night after I get home from the weekend with my partner. So I decided to check those days to see if any patterns may have shown up. Some interesting results presented themselves in the first 2 weeks of November. In the first week, the drop rate of gold was significantly higher than the other drops on Wednesday and Sunday. Also, silver made up half of the Fate Ember drops on Thursday. In the second week, I noticed something similar happened to Wednesday and Sunday drops as the first week. But instead of gold being the primary item dropped, it was honing material chests. I wasn't sure if it was a coincidence or if I was onto something at the time, so I continued farming away as usual. I also created a Soul Eater and a Slayer for my roster this week. On the week of November 22nd, a similar pattern occurred, but instead of honing materials or gold, this week's flavor was silver. I now have 3 weeks where one type of item dropped significantly more than the others on set days, which led me to theorize that the items dropped by a Fate Ember on any given day are more likely to be one specific type, and they change each day. However, I did not know if the type of drops were dictated by the character, the roster, the account, or just globally. Also, there's a 3-day gap between Wednesday and Sunday for different types of drop, so I had to test which ones had set days. If my theory was true, then there would be 4 different days of set drops, with 2 of the drops sprinkled in randomly across the week. Near the end of the week, I also created an Arcana and a Reaper to add more data to my research, considering the gold and material income from all the Chaos Dungeons and events made it super cheap and easy. The following week, I was expecting to see either card experience, epic selectors, or legendary card packs as the main drop. I had already basically ruled out legendary selection packs and 20k or higher gold bars as part of the regular drop rotation, due to the fact that I've done over 3,000 Chaos Dungeons up to this point and have not seen either drop from Fate Embers. The result of this week were not any of the 3 I was expecting. It was gold. Lots of gold. This was the most gold I'd ever made in 1 week from Fate Ember drops. Despite how amazing getting large quantities of gold like this was, it threw me off slightly because now I could confirm that the drops received on day 1, which is the Wednesday, and day 4, which is the Sunday, would have a higher likelihood of being the same and in larger quantities. However, I couldn't yet correctly predict what would drop on what day each week. The week of December 6th to 12th would point me back in the right direction again. This week, the Wednesday and Sunday would yield a large quantity of material chest drops, just like the week of November 8th to 14th a month ago. Also, like the week in November, this week was also preceded by a week of high quantity gold drops. If we look at the 4 weeks of data from October 25th to November 21st, we can see that week 2 had the gold drops on day 1 and 4, whereas week 3 had material boxes. However, we do not know what drops on week 1 and week 4. If we use the next 4 weeks of data, we can see that week 2 and week 3 have repeating patterns, but now we know that week 1 seems to have a high likelihood of dropping silver. That means, if my theory is correct, if I were to do most of my chaos on Wednesday and Sunday on week 2, Thursday and Monday on week 3, and Friday and Tuesday on week 4, then I would have 3 weeks of large gold income and 1 week of low income, because there is only 1 gold day that week, and it's on a Saturday, which is a day that I normally don't play because I'm away. We must test this by changing the days that I do Chaos Dungeons on the week of December 13th to 19th, to try and see if my theory is at least plausible. According to the rough guide I made, week 4 should theoretically drop more gold on Friday and Tuesday. And here were the results. The gold dropped more on those days like predicted, so I'm feeling like I'm onto something. Using my guide, the upcoming week would be a no gold week, so I thought I would try and find out what the mystery 4th drop is by targeting those days. Safe to say, I was surprised by a result. There seemed to be a large drop rate of both card experience and epic card selection packs on those target days. I went back to previous weeks and realized that the 4th day could drop a combination of card experience and epic selectors. If this were true, then legendary card packs could be considered random drops that could occur at any time on any day, considering they were the only drops that I couldn't find a reliable pattern for. I also assumed the same would apply to legendary selectors, as they're significantly rarer drops. After my discovery, I updated my guide to factor in the newly identified 4th Ember drop, and proceeded to cut down my Chaos Dungeons to only target the gold earning days. The next 2 weeks went according to plan, and both generated over 100,000 gold each week. I'd basically cracked the code in my mind at this point. The following week, however, on the 10th of January, disaster struck. The New Year update for Lost Ark arrived, and little did I know, but my Fate Ember world was about to be turned upside down. The servers went up, and I did my chaos one by one like I normally do. And at the time I wasn't stressed because this was a no gold week. So I figured I might as well farm some card experience this week for my card sets. I even got a handful of gold coins and bars during Unrested Chaos. After finishing all my characters for the night, I went to bed and woke up the next day with no internet at all for the next 4 days. This wasn't too worrying for me at the time because I would just go do chores and spend the weekend with my partner, but I didn't realize it was a bad omen for what was coming. The internet came back Monday morning, so I diligently went back to farming and noticed a substantial drop in the amount of Fate Embers I was receiving. I merely thought it was due to less playtime because of no internet for a majority of the week, but then the next week came along. I started streaming 2 days a week more frequently and decided to push my Chaos Dungeons later in the week because I was doing way more raids on stream earlier in the week. I didn't target specific days for drops due to time constraints, but it was clear that I was still receiving less Fate Embers than usual, and warning signs started going off in my head. This would be the first week since the update dropped in August that I would not receive a 10,000 gold bar from a Fate Ember. Keep in mind, at this point in the game, all 28 of my characters were at least item level 1540 or above, with 2 1600, 2 1580, and 3 1560 characters. Something was off. The following week would be not only the second week, that I do not receive a 10,000 gold bar, but also the second consecutive week. My gold income from the last few months had halted to a trickle. The week of January 31st to February 6th would be the week that I would confirm what I didn't want to be true. They had nerfed the drops from Fate Embers. This week was, according to my research, supposed to give me a substantial amount of gold based on the days I were doing, but it made almost the same amount of gold as the previous week since the January update hit. The February Extreme Volton update landed the following week, and I decided to give the test one more degen session to see if I could find anything. The short answer was no. I did almost double the amount of Chaos Dungeons that week compared to the last 4 weeks and barely generated double the amount of gold from the week before. February 14th to the 20th would be the final week of this experiment, purely because I was moving out and I didn't know how long things would take to get everything set up again. I was hoping this final week would prove fruitful, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. The gold generated was like the weeks before with no clear pattern yet to be found. So what did I learn? Well, firstly, this information is based on my experience on my account only, and I cannot confirm that the results are 100% accurate for everyone. Based on the feedback from my friends, the general vibe that I'm getting is that they're getting more gold drops more frequently while I'm receiving less. Which leads me to believe that the gold drop rate for characters at 1540 and below may have had their drop rates nerfed, while the 1600s and above have been increased. Also, I never received more than 2 Embers on the same Chaos Dungeon run on any character after conducting more than 6,000 Chaos Dungeons since the update, which means either the maximum drop count is capped at 2, or it's near statistical impossibility. The average drop rate of Fate Embers before the January New Year update was 5.59 Chaos Dungeons. However, after the update it increased to 6.82, with an overall average of 5.86. So that means that roughly every 6 Chaos Dungeons you receive a Fate Ember. Unrested Chaos Dungeons had a higher average drop rate of 6.87 before the January update, and 8.49 after the update, with an overall average of 7.13. This is compared to rested dungeons with a rate of 3.55 before the January update, and 5.24 after the update, and an overall rate of 3.89. This essentially suggests that rested chaos is roughly twice as likely to drop an ember compared to unrested chaos. I completed 6,164 chaos dungeons during this investigation, averaging 228 a week, with 4,258 being unrested and 1,906 being rested, and collected 1,087 Fate Embers in total. The amount of silver I earned on average per week just from Fate Ember drops alone was roughly 7.8 million. And the amount of card experience I earned on average per week was around 260,000. The amount of gold on average I was making per week before the January update was almost exactly 80,000 gold. However, after the January update, I was only making roughly 23,000 gold on average per week. If I were to do this experiment again, I would track all drops individually instead of categorizing silver and card experience as one drop. Also, I didn't track material drops or just raw silver from Chaos Dungeons because I was lazy, and didn't even consider it until I was more than a few months into my investigation. I didn't receive a legendary selection card pack or any gold bar above 20,000 gold during my investigation, despite having a few 1600 and 1580 characters. So if I were to do the experiment again, I'd like to push more characters and see if higher item levels affect the drop rates. I had also set up my spreadsheet to track the item levels of each drop to see the distribution of Fate Ember rewards across different eye levels. So here's the information you guys are probably very curious about. Drop rates. Below is a list of the drop rates of all the items based on what I received. They are divided into 3 categories: unrested, rested, and total drop rate. Silver, card experience, small and medium material chests seem to have a slightly higher drop rate in unrested Chaos Dungeons, while legendary card packs, large material chests, and gold seem to be more likely to drop in rested Chaos Dungeons. And the drop rates for legendary selection and gold bars above 20,000 are not factored in because I did not receive any during my investigation. Well, that about sums things up, so if you want to see more of me, feel free to join my Discord using the link below, where I'm trying to build a pretty cool community. Also, if you play Lost Ark on NA West and are looking for someone to raid with or just want to hang out in my stream, I'm usually live all day Thursday and Friday at twitch.tv/JamaicanJazz. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. It took me a very long time to make, so a like and a subscribe would be greatly appreciated. Also, feel free to share the video and see what other people think. I would love some feedback. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!